shame can be a really powerful force. Sometimes there are things you do out of shame. Sometimes there are things you don't do out of shame. Sometimes, in order to get anything done, you have to shovel emotional dirt over the shame. But the shame is still there, lurking, always there. I was always a terrible student. No, actually, what's worse is I was always an average student. I was just one of those smart kids that never quite clicked with the whole academia thing. At Bronx Science, I was average, an 80. The thing you have to understand about Bronx Science is that if you're in the 90s, you're doing it right. If you're under 70, you're a misunderstood genius like a Steve Jobs or an Albert Einstein. But if you're an 80, well, it's like my grandmother used to say. And then I went to Hunter, and I didn't really go to class much, and so my GPA was just awful. But by then I had figured it out. I was going to work in the arts. I was going to be a director or an actor or a singer, but certainly not in academia. No, not for me. Did I really think that, or was I just using arrogance and bravado to cover up the shame of being a disappointment as a student? I didn't know then, but I figured it out a few years later. So flash forward 20 years or so. I'm away directing an opera on a gig, and I'm having some very promising phone calls and emails with someone at Brooklyn College. They were looking for someone to direct their opera and teach their opera workshop class. And I figured I should probably tell this person that I didn't have a degree. So I told her. And click. And that was about the 6th time that happened to me. But for some reason, this time, it really pissed me off. So that anger and that frustration drove me, when I got back, 2 days later, to go into the registrar's office at Hunter. Well, maybe it was 2 years later, but yeah, it was 2 years. But eventually I did. I went into the registrar's office and I sat down with a counselor, and I saw her see on her screen my 1.94 GPA. And I had enough arrogance with me that day to say to her, no, you need to understand that 1.94, it doesn't represent me. It does not represent who I am. I'm different now. And she was so convinced by that little speech that they turned me down. Then I went in next year, and same speech, different counselor, same turn down. But by then I just thought, oh, again, why does it matter to me so much? But something had kind of clicked in by then, which was that in your 30s, it's sort of cool and rebellious to be a well-read dropout. But in your 50s, it's just sad. And I had my other grandmother's voice in my ear telling me that Jews don't drop out. But again, where was I going to go? I wanted to finish what I had started, where I'd started it. But again, I wondered if that feeling was just another way to give myself an excuse not to go back. I just really didn't know what to do. So I don't know if y'all noticed this, but it seems like Lehman's had 4 presidents in the last month, but one of them changed my life. I was at a dinner where Bronx Opera was getting an award, and Lehman was too, and I happened to be sitting next to the president of that day, Jose Cruz, and I knew him a little bit, and I was just making chit-chat with him, and I asked him if Lehman happened to have a program for someone like me, who had fucked up school in 1991. And he looked at me and said, "Why, yes, we do." He probably didn't say, "Why, yes, we do," but he told me about the adult degree program, ADP. made for me, and not at $10,000 a credit either. It was incredibly exciting and also terrifying, because I had gotten so comfortable with the disappointment and the shame of being a terrible student when I was younger that I seriously, I almost didn't follow it up. But the shame of the thought of not following it up turned out to be stronger than the shame that I had felt for years and years and years. So in this particular case, one shame outweighed the other shame. You wouldn't think that an orientation session could take away the shame. I don't remember much about the orientation session for the adult degree program, but I remember one phrase: a fresh start. Adult degree program takes your credits from before, but not your GPA. So you graduate with a Lehman degree in whatever, but with your Lehman GPA. A fresh start. I was having a phone conversation last week with a family friend, Alice, who's known me since I was about 6 years old and is a psychologist by trade, so she asks a million questions. And she asked me why it was that I hadn't gone back to school since I was in my 20s. Now, I have always had a very well-rehearsed answer to this. I was too busy, I was working, blah, 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 whatever. But really, it's the shame. And I told her that. And she said, you have to let go of the shame. And then I told her about doing this Bronx Tales thing, and that this was helping me get rid of the shame. You wouldn't think that a school program, a bureaucratic program, could help just get rid of all your shame. And it hasn't. I still feel it. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel now. And when I look at all those kids in my classes, all the 20-year-olds, I think about the 20-year-old me, and I think about what I would tell that kid. And I think I would say, well, don't leave school. But moreover, I would say, don't give up. If you leave school, don't give up. You can go back. Don't let the shame that you feel at what you've done stop you from doing what you should do now. Shame is powerful, but it can't beat you unless you let it. And also, you're okay. You will be okay. You are okay.